Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Q&A conversation for our upcoming course, Mastering Your Charge, a 7-week dive into the inner psychology of igniting, liberating, and harmonizing your full life force. I'm Lisa Bonise, and I'll be hosting this Q&A for the Shift Network with Anodea Judith and address your questions about her upcoming 7-week course, Mastering Your Charge, which begins Tuesday, November 6th. Later, I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend the live sessions. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Anodea Judith is a worldwide spiritual teacher and the best-selling author of Wheels of Life, A User's Guide to the Chakra System, and several other books. She's the founder and director of the teaching organization Sacred Centers. Anodea holds a master's degree in clinical psychology and a doctorate in mind-body health with advanced yoga certifications. She knows what she's talking about. In just a few moments, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Anodea, who's going to open our call by leading us in an opening practice. Welcome, Anodea. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and welcome everyone to this Q&A session. And just to open up our hearts and minds to whatever wants to come through, let's start with a little meditation to get grounded and centered from the day. And close your eyes and let go for a moment of the outer world as you come inside to your inner temple, that place within your skin that only you inhabit. Let go of the outer world, let the busyness of the day fall away as you come into your breath. And as you exhale in your breath, allow your energy to drop downward toward the earth, to settle deeper into your body, deeper into your chair, deeper into the earth. Maybe even letting your jaw hang loose a little bit, letting a little sound out between your lips, letting your shoulders settle down, and sinking into the base of your spine, the root chakra, imagining roots going down into the earth. And we activate those roots by actively and consciously pushing your sitting bones down into your chair, pressing the tip of your tailbone, which we know curls underneath the body, energetically pressing it back toward the back of your chair. And notice how that increases the curve of the sacrum and begins to wake up your spine. So now as you inhale, lift your crown up, the top of the head up to the heavens, lengthening your spine. And as you exhale, push those roots down into the chair and down into the earth. Inhale, lift the crown. And exhale, releasing down into the earth. And as you stretch your spine out in two opposite directions, lifting the crown and pushing the roots down, feel what lies between the crown and the base, through the central core of you. Imagine it as a column of life force energy that is uniquely yours. You might even listen to the energy signature that is uniquely yours, your flavor, your quality. That place where you go, oh yeah, that's me. And say hello to it. And notice how that energy is running in every cell of your body, your fingertips, tingling with aliveness. Your toes, every cell alive. That energy moving up your ankles, your calves. Feeling that aliveness in your knees, your thighs. All that energy coming up from the earth, up through your legs into your first chakra at the base of the spine. Filling up into the second chakra in the abdomen. Filling up with the breath into the third chakra and the solar plexus. Filling up into the fourth chakra, whose element is air, in the center of the heart. Filling up into the throat chakra, where you feel it is a fine vibration of energy. Filling up with this fine energy up into your sixth chakra, your third eye center, filling with light. And finally, opening to the crown chakra that is filling with divine energy, however you think of that to be, like a flower filling with sunlight, just drinking it in. And drinking it in and all the way down through each of your chakras, all the way down to the roots, so that you're sitting in a shower of energy, filling you and enlivening you. Namaste. Welcome.
Thank you, Anodea. I needed that one. All right. So now we have the rest of our time together to dive into our viewers' questions for Anodea as we prepare for her upcoming course. Again, that's called Mastering Your Charge, and it begins Tuesday, November 6th. If you want to check out the website and learn more about the 7-week course, you can visit masteringyourcharge.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with questions. If you have a question for Anodea, go ahead and type it in, and I'll be happy to read them aloud. We've already got questions piling in here. I want to start with just a fun one here. Michael says, Anodea, how can you be so awesome? Just wondering.
Oh, thank you so much. I don't know exactly what you're basing that on. I don't always feel so awesome, but I think it's because these techniques work. I mean, I have to be an embodiment of the work, right? I have to apply it to myself, and there's days I wake up and I don't feel very awake and I'm exhausted. I just got back from a 6-week tour of several countries and several different cities. I think I slept in 9 different hotel rooms in 6 weeks. And I can be exhausted too. And I just, I know some of these techniques and I know how to get myself back upright again as soon as I can. So I don't know. I think it's the work. Thank you, though.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Michael. Let's go to a question here from Theodosia, who says, how do we reactivate and move stagnant energy that has been stuck for a long time?
Yeah, so energy that becomes stagnant is usually held in a particular part of the body. And the reason it becomes stagnant is on an unconscious level, we're holding it that way. So when the charge, that what I'm talking about is life force, the charge arises, often you can see someone block it in their body at the same time that it arises. I see it often come up when someone wants to say something and then all of a sudden their throat chakra constricts. And so then it would become stagnant in the throat, for example. So in order to move that energy, we have to break the habit of constricting. How do we break the habit? We have to make what we're doing unconsciously, we have to make it conscious. So I will say to someone, so can you feel how you're restricting your throat? Can you do that a little bit more? Because by doing it more, we start to get control over it. Once we do it a little bit more and we notice, oh, I'm pulling my shoulders up to my ears, I'm holding my breath, I'm pulling my chest back. If we exaggerate that, we feel what we're doing, then we can gradually do it less. And as we do it less, we begin to dissolve the block and the stagnant energy starts to move. Now, that's just one technique. We can also do it with breath. We can do it with postures. We can do it with tapping. We can even sometimes do it with intention, though I like a little more concrete exercises to move. So there's a lot of techniques.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to an anonymous question here. This one says, how does releasing charge shift one's mindset?
Well, our mindset is based on our experience. So you have an experience of being sad, or you have an experience of being elated or being scared, a multitude of experiences. And as we have those experiences over and over again, we create a mindset about them. Let's say fear comes up for you again and again. You might create a mindset that the world is not safe or that you're not safe. And so as we move the charge and find a new way of holding the energy in our body, we actually have a different experience. And from that different experience, you might switch from I'm not safe to, oh, I can take care of myself. My energy is available to me to take care of myself. And from that new mindset, you might feel a little bit safer. So the mindset creates how we hold charge, and how we hold charge creates the experience that creates our mindset.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a question here from Shar, who says, how can you help young children control their charge to either increase, like to do focused work, or to decrease it when they're just too charged at the wrong time, like in the grocery store, running up and down the aisle, or perhaps at the library?
Right. So, children are full of charge in most cases, and they don't want to be restricted. They have to sit still in school, and then when they get out of school, they want to run all over the place, or if they're younger than school age, they just want to run. It's not really very biologically natural to hold still, but this is the society that we live in. So when children are really charged, if possible, it's nice to give them something to discharge. You could say, push into my hands and make a bunch of noise. And just play a game with them. Now, you might not be able to do that in the grocery store. I would teach, and I do this with my grandchildren, I would teach them about charge. I would say, you have a lot of charge right now. Where are you feeling that in your body? And they might, then they have to take their attention off, oh, I want to go run down the aisle of the grocery store, to what is going on inside. And it's not by telling them they're wrong or bad to control the charge. It's by making them in touch with it, saying, oh, that's your life force. You don't want to spend that, do you? You want to save that up like the pennies in your piggy bank. Let's save it up for later, and then we can go out and walk the dog, and you can run some of that off. So it teaches them to honor their charge as something precious that they don't want to foolishly or frivolously spend. So that would be my suggestion.
Oh, that's a great idea. Almost makes me wish my kids were little again. Almost. Let's go to a question here from Judy, who says, how do I protect myself from other people's energies or clear myself quickly? I seem to absorb these energies easily and get overwhelmed and tired and can't tell what is me.
Yeah, that's a common problem. And so one thing I teach is about filling up with our own energy. We did a little of this in the opening meditation. And the more you are full with your own energy, the less room there is for someone else's energy to get in. Now, be that as it may, we're not always full. Sometimes we're tired, and we're much more easily influenced by someone else in that moment. And when we're tired, things can get in. And sometimes people have very powerful energy. They're in a rage and they're dumping their anger on you, and there's a direct line of energy charge coming right into your system. So in the latter case, when someone is dumping anger or some kind of energy on you, I suggest in your mind, or even physically if you can, turning sideways so that you're not taking that energy directly into the center of your chakras and not engaging with the energy per se. Sort of like in martial arts, where in Aikido, where you help the person who's coming at you, you grab them and they go in the direction they're already going, and you help them go right past you instead of confronting them and taking it right in. So if somebody's really angry, I just kind of pull my energy back a little, energetically in my mind, or physically turn sideways, let the energy go by, allow them to finish discharging, because that's what they're doing, until their charge level comes back down. And you can do this with a child too, who's busy discharging. And then when they're finished, you can re-engage. Then you might be able to say what you have to say, or acknowledge what you heard, or talk about how you're feeling in the moment. So that's one way. Now, if we're just tired and we've been giving out all day, and there we are, someone else is, we're just so too absorbent. It's good to, maybe take some salt water and just sprinkle it on you. There is a simple breathing exercise I do with a snap of the diaphragm. For those who do yoga, it's called Kapalabhati, or the breath of fire. And it's just a rapid, and my third chakra, my solar plexus, let's see if I can kind of rise up and in that, you just snap it in, let the air go out. And so I'll do that while I'm pushing out from my surface of my skin. And it sort of cleans the auric field of other people's energy. Now, you might not be able to do that in the middle of a business interview, or, sitting there with your mother-in-law, but you can excuse yourself, go off in the bathroom, clean all that out, and then remember, after you clean out, to fill yourself with your own energy. You might pick a color that's your favorite color. And, I think of mine as pastel when I run my energy. It's just sort of a soft flow of pastel colors that I know is uniquely me, and I'll fill up all those spots with myself again, and then there's less room for somebody else's energy. So it's a common problem. We also want to work on boundaries. But I think that's enough for this moment. Next question.
All right. Thanks. This is actually a follow-up, I think, to the one about kids. Maggie says, and I don't know if you can answer this, but let's give it a try. Maggie says, what about an autistic child who's having a full-blown meltdown? When this happens in public, it's a horrible scene. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I would meet that child physically and maybe, grab onto their wrists and look them in the eye the best you can. Now, autistic children don't always want to look you in the eye, but try to get their attention. Let them know you're really there with them and that they can push their charge into you. You're much bigger than they are. You can take it, and just say, I got you. I'm here. Yeah, push into me. Yeah. And I'm going to meet you, and just give them some containment and a place to put that charge. Now, I haven't worked specifically. I haven't had an autistic child myself. I have raised children, but so, I can't guarantee that would work. But if I were in that situation, that's what I would do. And, give them the contact and the containment, but they don't have to stuff it, because they're not going to be able to. And they don't put it out beyond them. They have a place to channel the charge, and they're met in that charge.
All right, beautiful. Thank you. And hello to your kitty.
Yeah, you might hear a little meow in the background. It's getting a little towards dinner time for the kitties.
Let's go to a question here from, I believe it's pronounced Fons. The question is, what can help to discern between willpower or ego and the authentic power of the soul?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. And I think that I like something that, of all people, Aleister Crowley, the infamous, said a long time ago. He said, true power unassuaged of the lust of result, is in every way perfect. So when we're doing something out of the lust of result, I'm helping this little old lady across the street because I'm hoping she'll pay me when I'm done. Or I'm doing this because I want everyone to recognize it and, whatever. Then that is a kind of imperfect, there we go with a cat in the background. That's Panther, everybody. That's an ego. But when we say this is the right thing to do, and I'm doing it regardless of whether I get recognized for it, whether I get a reward for it, I'm doing this because this is the right thing. Like making an anonymous donation to a cause when you don't get recognized for it, but you know it's the right thing to do. And a way that I look at individual will and divine will, if you will, is that if you're in a sailboat, the divine will is the wind. You have no control over whether the wind is blowing that day or which direction. What you have control over is the direction of the sail. And by the way that you put that sail into the wind, you can actually go anywhere you want. So you're harnessing the greater will by the way your own will faces into it. Now we say attitude is the way we face into a force. So your attitude in a situation is the way you face into the forces acting upon you. And with the right attitude, you can harness those forces to go anywhere you want.
Okay, thank you. Interesting. Let's go to a question here from Liz, who says, when I pray a lot, and I have done for years, the top of my head burns. How would you understand this? And do you have any suggestions?
Well, burning is I've heard a lot about people having tingling at the top of their head. And of course, when you pray, you may be activating your 7th chakra, which is the connection to the divine. Kitty, stop that. And so that energy is making a connection. So I'm not sure what's making it burn. You may be too much in the 7th chakra and not grounded. So I would ground the energy so whatever is trying to get in your crown can be grounded through, and that may take away some of the excess from the crown chakra.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a question here from Susie, who says, in alcohol recovery, should you focus on charging up or charging down?
Ooh, in alcohol recovery. Well, as someone gives up the alcohol, which they've been using, you could say, to manage their charge. Now, alcohol can loosen your inhibitions so that it allows you to discharge. It might give you temporary energy, allowing you to charge or feel yourself. But when you take that out of the equation, the charge from your original wounds will eventually surface. And so if I was working with someone in recovery, I would be careful not to get them too overcharged. That we need to learn to handle our wounds slowly as they come up. And we don't want to put someone into a state where they feel overwhelmed again. Oh, I can't handle my charge. I have too much anxiety. I have too much coming up. I need a drink. So I would try to avoid getting to that kind of situation with someone in recovery and teach some charge management skills and teach someone to understand their charge and how to allow it to flow through slowly, and also give them some techniques for discharging, for getting rid of excess charge should it come up when they don't want it to or feel they aren't ready to handle it. But the short answer is I would be careful not to get someone in fresh recovery overcharged.
Okay, thank you. How about a question here from TC, who says, how can I open blocked chakras, for example, the heart chakra?
Yeah, so the way we open blocked chakras is a little bit different for each chakra. because each one is a different element, a different place in the body. They have different psychological principles. They're about different things in our psyche, for example. But the heart in particular is the element air. And so one of the techniques we use to open the heart is working with the breath. When we constrict the heart chakra, we simultaneously constrict the breath, and the muscles of the chest actually get tight, and it becomes difficult, even for some people, to get a really deep and easy breath. And as we consciously expand the breath, and of course, as we breathe in, we're charging. As we breathe out, we're discharging, so we can start to manage and balance our charge through working with the breath. Other ways is to have someone push on your chest. So push right on the sternum here. And, this takes two people, but if I'm working with someone with a blocked heart, I might put my hand right over their sternum with their permission and have them standing and pushing into their ground, and then say, push your chest into my heart. Push your chest into my hand, make a sound, let out some breath. And I do that a little, and then I back off, and then I do it a little, and then I back off. And I let them kind of absorb that movement as it discharges a little bit, dissolves the block a little bit. I let it just happen slowly, and I see if the charge level comes up. Another way to charge the heart is to reach your hands out, grab somebody else's hands with the resistance, and pull them into the heart. And then take your hands over your heart chakra and just keep that. So when someone's pulling in, they have to pull in with the other person giving them just a little bit of resistance. So they have to really pull. And what do you know? You feel, oh, there's a little more charge in my heart when I do that. So those are two techniques I would use.
Okay, great. Thanks. And on a related note, Lynn is wondering, how do we know when our chakras are blocked or out of balance?
Well, if you learn about the chakra system, and believe me, that's a lifelong study. I've been working with it for 45 years, and I'm still learning. But if you learn about the chakra system and you know where the chakras are, and you know what elements they relate to, and what, like your power chakra is about power, and your heart chakra is about love, and your throat chakra is about communication, then you begin to see, you probably know what doesn't work in your life and what does work. So if your relationships don't work, it's probably something in the heart chakra. If you have difficulty communicating, it's probably something in the throat chakra. If you have difficulty trusting or working with your intuition, it's probably your sixth chakra. If you have difficulty managing your emotions, it's probably your second chakra. If you have difficulty grounding, it's probably your first. So, excuse me, you look at what is or is not working in your life, and you can also feel it in your body. What parts of your body are hard to be in touch with? What parts of your body feel dense or blocked? Where do you put on weight if you are prone to putting on weight? Or where can't you put on weight if you're prone to being underweight? The body will shape itself around the energy of the chakras and the energy in the energy body. The physical body will shape itself around that. So you can do a lot of detective work just by looking at the body. But the real test is, how do these elements and these attributes work in your life? And the elements is like, do I have too much earth? Am I heavy and sluggish? Or too little earth? Am I flighty and up in my head? Do I have too much fire? Am I burning up? Am I cold all the time with slow metabolism and not enough fire? So we can take the elements and look at too much or too little. And from that, I extrapolate excessive and deficient chakras. And in terms of charge, excessive chakras need to discharge. Deficient chakras need to take charge in.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a question here from Margit, who says, as I've been reading through Eastern Body, Western Mind, I'm realizing how deeply wounded I've been through my childhood experiences. I just wondered if the charge workshop will help, even if these areas have not yet been healed.
Yeah, I mean, the charge workshop is really about how to look at what we did with our energy as a result of our wounds. So if you've been reading Eastern Body, Western Mind, then you've been getting in touch with, oh my gosh, this happened to me and that happened to me. And it certainly wasn't my intention to make people feel like, oh man, I'm messed up. But it's the beginning where we look at our wounds and we know that there is healing available for that. In the charge work, which is where I've come to 20 years after writing that book, I'm looking at what happened, what happened to our energy as a result of the wounds. So everything that you all have been through, you got through it somehow. You're here today, you're alive, you survived it. The question is, what did you have to do to yourself in order to survive whatever you've been through? You had to either tamp down your energy or you had to either amp it up and be excessive in another thing. You had to be powerful in order to take care of yourself because it was a dangerous world, or you had to go hide because you weren't safe. You had to open your heart and take care of everybody in order to be valued, or you said it's not safe to love and you closed off your heart. And all of these different patterns, you can see it in the chakras, you can see it in the body, you can see it in the character structures. We learn, okay, how do I unlock what got locked up because of these wounds? So freeing up the charge really is the healing. When you have the charge back, that's in present time. The past happened, it's over with. It's still with you only in the regard to what it did to you that is still with you today. Like it may still be difficult to communicate, or it may still be difficult to trust yourself, or to sit still in meditation, or whatever you still have. That, as a result of your wounds, can be healed. And when you can redistribute the energy, those things from the past are no longer problems. Or if they are, you have tools in order to connect with it.
Right, great. Now, if you're just joining us, we're here with Anodea Judith, learning about her upcoming course, Mastering Your Charge, which begins Tuesday, November 6th. You can log on to masteringyourcharge.com for all the details and to register. So let's get back to questions here. We've got a follow-up here from Maureen to what you were talking about a minute ago. She says, you mentioned burning up means too much fire. Do you mean hot flashes? I've been suffering from hot flashes that disrupt my life. What do you mean by too much fire?
Well, too much fire is too much charge in one sense. Some people just burn through their food with really high metabolism. They're hot all the time. Hot flashes are, there's a chemical thing going on, post-menopause when the estrogen is not coming through and the hot flashes have a regular rhythm. But, they can be very debilitating. They can keep you awake at night, and they can be very inconvenient at the least. So I think that it is probably some bit of a charge management system, but I hesitate to say it's all that, because really, taking some herbs and supplements and maybe even hormones can help balance that. But I remember when I used to have hot flashes back then. And, if I had a cup of coffee, I would get a hot flash. If somebody said something that triggered me, I would get a hot flash. So I think that at the same time, the hot flashes are signals of your energy body. They're signals of the sensitivity there. And during that time, we are more sensitive to whatever hasn't been freed up. And that energy is trying to get freed up and move through and clear the body. So you can welcome them as power surges. You can, take some herbs, or you can notice what is it that brings up the hot flashes, and how can I even, reframe how I think of them to say, yeah, it's a power surge. Let me really absorb that charge.
All righty. Let's go to a question here from Ara, who says, could you give an example of discharging our own PTSD charge at the throat chakra and solar plexus, for example? You mentioned not doing it all at once, so I'd love to hear more on this.
Yeah, well, I've done a lot of study of working with trauma. And, trauma is a very delicate situation. It's a very high charge that gets frozen quickly. So often trauma is something that happens very quickly, like a car coming in from left field, and you only have a second to react, and your charge shoots through the roof, and then it freezes. Sometimes trauma develops through something a little less intense, but it happens frequently over time, and every time there's sort of a deposit to some frozen charge that can't be released. So it can be overwhelming for a person to release all of that at once. And so it's important when someone's been traumatized that they begin to gain control over their energy body, that they are able to manage it and they don't feel subject to, the slings and arrows of, post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is the charge doing its own thing, despite the fact that we may not want it to do that. We may not want to shake, or we may not want to stay awake at night, or we may not want to be afraid of coming into relationship. So it's good to contact the charge, to feel what we're doing to block it, to honor that, and to do discharging exercises that are letting out just a little bit at a time, sort of letting the pressure off a pressure cooker before you open it up. So if it's the throat chakra, well, the main throat chakra discharge is sound or words. So maybe what's in there as a result of trauma is a big scream. I wouldn't have somebody scream right away. I'd have them make little sounds, maybe put their hand on their throat and go, ah, and then wait and see what happens, and then do it again, ah, and maybe push your hands and make a sound. And so just discharging in little discrete packets. In the third chakra, it's more about what does someone need to do, or what did they need to do at the time of trauma that they couldn't do. It might be they sit in a chair and they move their feet back and forth, running in place. It might be they make fists and they hit into a pillow. It might be they block, someone coming and protect themselves. It's like, what does the body need to do to release that charge? And again, I would do it slowly, and then I would come back and I would restabilize, and then I might do a little more and come back and restabilize. So I'm never letting the person get too far away from stabilization, and yet they're making progress. And the good thing about this, when I do trauma sessions using this work, is that however far we get in a session, it keeps. They don't backtrack. If you do too much at a time, someone will backtrack. So a little bit at a time is the main key.
Okay, thank you. We've got a question here from Yolanda. Actually, it's not so much a question as much as comments. Maybe you can help. Yolanda says, I can't focus. My mind seems to be all over the place. I can't finish things I start, even trying to take in information. I get overwhelmed a lot.
Yeah, so I would call that too much charge, or too much charge for you. And I wonder if you did some kind of discharge before you sat down to focus. Go for a run, play some music and dance in your living room, pound on some pillows, do some kickboxing, something active. If you did that and did some releasing, both physically and with your voice, if it might be easier to focus when you need to focus by just getting that discharge. You may be taking in too much from your environment, so you're getting stimulated by everything and you're not able to let go of the charge that comes in from stimulation. So you need to find a way. More releasing is what I would say. When the charge level comes back down, then you don't have so much going on that it's distracting you, and you might be able to focus a little better. Be kind to yourself around it.
All right. Thank you, Anodea. We're looking at the clock here. We have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I want to give a few details about the course. People are asking about that as well. Again, it's called Mastering Your Charge. And this is going to be a really powerful, life-changing 7-week journey under Anodea's expert guidance, where you'll transform trauma, meet difficult challenges with ease, and truly thrive with proven practices for mastering your life force energy. And the 7-week course takes place on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, starting Tuesday, November 6th. And if you can't join us live, that's something a lot of people are asking about. That's fine. You won't miss the teachings. You'll receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. You can also ask questions offline. That'll get to Anodea. Also, I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until November 20th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Mastering Your Charge bonus collection. First, you'll receive a video meditation with Anodea Judith entitled Charging Up Your Chakras, a standing meditation practice. Then you'll get an audio dialogue with Anodea and Stephen Kessler called From Pattern to Presence. Next, you'll receive a video dialogue with Anodea and Margot Anand entitled Charge and Tantra. You'll also get a PowerPoint presentation from Anodea called Charge, the Inner Psychology of Your Life Force. And in addition, you'll receive another video teaching from Anodea, this one entitled Charge Exercises Demonstration. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Thursday, November 1st, you'll receive this additional bonus gift. That is one more audio teaching from Anodea called Taking Charge, the Key to Our Aliveness. So before we get back into questions, Anodea, would you like to tell us what you're most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, as I've been teaching this for a number of years now and teaching about charge, the word just becomes part of somebody's everyday vocabulary after a while. And they have a whole new way of understanding themselves, of understanding their partner, their children, their parents, their coworkers, a whole new way and a set of tools that really sets people free. And I really love the light bulbs that go on as people start to understand this, that it's not just the mind, it's not just the body, it's the energy and what we do with it, and that we can make contact with that energy. And that energy is golden. It's like money. You don't want to tie it up in a frozen account where you can't get at it, and you don't want to spend it foolishly on anything that comes up. You want to spend it wisely, you want to save it, you want to create interest, and you want to watch that energy grow. So we want to ultimately learn to harvest the charge, which is a way of keeping it in our tissues in a way that is pleasant but not blocked. That's what I'm excited about teaching.
All right, sounds awesome. Let's go ahead and get back to questions here. We've got a question here from Sarah who says, how are the chakras and mental health related? Can chakra exercise help to improve mental health?
Can chakra exercises, I missed a little bit of that, Lisa, I'm sorry.
Can they help to improve mental health?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the book I wrote about that someone mentioned earlier is Eastern Body, Western Mind, and that is the psychology of the chakra system. And so it puts the chakras on a map of developmental psychology, saying that there's certain ages where the bulk of the chakra program is written. It doesn't mean it's not affected later, but where the bulk of that is, where someone's learning to operate their body and learning to crawl and walk, when they're learning to nourish themselves and express themselves emotionally, where they're finding their power, they're becoming socialized, they're learning to really learn through communication, they're growing up and starting to imagine their own life and their own worldview. So there are stages to it. And as we begin to understand how did we compensate or avoid different aspects at these different developmental stages, we have a way of healing it. So if we compensated, it became an excessive chakra that needs to discharge. If we avoided, it becomes a deficient chakra that needs to charge. And as we balance the charge, we get a new mind state, as I was mentioning at the beginning of this call. It gives us, and even if you're not working with the charge, even understanding the psychology of the chakras gives you a map for understanding yourself. You'll make more sense to yourself. You'll have a schema in which to say, oh, okay, that happened, and I see this was supposed to happen, and I didn't get what I needed there, or I got something I didn't want, and you can have a better understanding. And so in that, it can create more mental clarity. And I think the health comes from working with the somatic aspects of that, which is the management of the charge in your body.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's take that question in a more physical direction. Marissa wants to know if this work can help boost the immune system.
Well, I believe it can. And I think when the immune system is either not working properly or turning against itself or turning against the body, as in autoimmune disorders, that means there's, one is not enough charge, because we need energy to defend ourselves. We need energy for the immune system to kick in. If we're really exhausted and we're depleted, that's when we're subject to catching a cold or a virus. And if there's too much energy and it's not able to move outward, then it's sort of like it hits a wall and turns against the self, and that can become an autoimmune disorder. So it depends on whether there's not enough or too much, because regulating the amount of charge is an important part in mastering your charge. We want to have the appropriate amount for the appropriate time of day, for the task at hand. We want to have energy when we wake up, and we don't want to have too much when it's time to go to sleep. So in the same way, the immune system needs energy, and autoimmune it has too much and needs to be redirected.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's take a question here from Edith Ann, who says, I take responsibility for my actions and inactions. I'm not codependent. However, I am married, and my husband's actions have consequences for me. Do you have advice for a devoted couple, especially if one partner is not introspective?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. And, I know that struggle is very real. And I also know that we can't change another person unless they want to get on board and, do the self-exploration and the introspection and the work to take themselves on. I think the best we can do is change ourselves and be an example, and maybe the other person will get curious. So, well, what are you doing? You're different now. And appreciate the other person for exactly where they are, and, see into them to the degree that you can, and validate that without asking them to be different. And that can look like, just validating that it may be hard for them to talk about their feelings, validating the good things, that even though you came from a tough childhood, it's amazing how responsible you are, or how steadfast you are, or how dependable or, reliable, or, whatever you can find to appreciate. And you can also talk about your own feelings. And I have a real longing to have a deep connection from where I live in my heart. I have a real longing to be able to share my feelings with someone that can understand them on an emotional level, because I didn't get that growing up. It's okay to speak about yourself. Where people get defensive is where they think somebody wants to change them. And, none of us want to be changed by someone else.
Very true. Thank you. Here's a question from Bill, who says, I've heard there's a sacred heart chakra and more than 7 chakras. Is that accurate?
More than 7 centers?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, there is a heart chakra, and I consider that sacred. In fact, I consider all the chakras sacred. That's why I call my business Sacred Centers, because each one of them is sacred. Also, that when we're centered, we want to be centered in the sacred, and the sacred should be the center of everything we do. So I think of them all as sacred. I don't think there's a heart chakra and then a separate sacred heart chakra. Now, different systems will give you different numbers of chakras. Even the old texts from India don't all agree on how many chakras there were or what really constitutes a chakra. I teach about chakras in your hands, chakras in your feet. So I find that the 7 chakra system to be very elegant, and it covers the full spectrum of human awareness. It's just like the 7 colors of the rainbow. Now, are those the only colors in the world? No, we have, ultraviolet green, and, we have, chartreuse and all sorts of different colors that are still part of the spectrum. So, in the same way, we can have different energy centers, but there's 7 major ones that have deep philosophical implications that map onto the nerve ganglia branching out from the spinal column, that map onto glands in the endocrine system. I mean, it's a very, very elegant, sort of cosmic ordering system, if you will, that maps onto the body stages, and I think that that's the easiest to work with. If we get too many chakras going and have attributes to each one of them, I think it gets way too complicated, and I know very few that have really mastered the basic 7 chakras.
All right, great, thank you. Got a question here from Mickey, who says, I have a lot of mental motivation and good intention, yet I find that I'm somehow blocked when it comes to getting things done. I'm a procrastinator. What do I need to work on?
3rd chakra. 3rd chakra charge arises for the purpose of action, of doing. And when we procrastinate, we're kind of we're sabotaging our own success. We're getting in our own way. There's something that got muddled up in the 3rd chakra. And so that energy starts up, but it doesn't quite complete. It doesn't quite move into action the way it should. And as we free up the 3rd chakra, you may find it a little easier to get going. Also, just to understand the 3rd chakra. That often comes from a childhood where the child is controlled a little too much. And so, controlled by the parents, or didn't have enough freedom, or didn't have enough autonomy, enough freedom to just be their own individual self. And as a result, on an unconscious level, that child went into resistance. You can't make me. And resistance was the only way to have a bit of that autonomy. I talk about this as the endurer character structure. And endurers very typically procrastinate and sabotage their own success. It's like driving with the brakes on. And it's very exhausting after a while. And once you can understand where you went into resistance, you can clear that resistance and move forward more easily. And one way to clear it is actually to exaggerate the resistance. I don't want it. No, you can't make me. And to actually go into that, let that have its say, and then go forward and get done what you have to do.
Wow, well, I needed to hear that one, so thank you for that, and thank you, Mickey, for asking. Perfect. Let's go to a question here from Kim, who says, normally I have a calm demeanor, but I always have difficulty in dealing or communicating with any criticisms from a boss without bursting into tears or an emotional response. How can I learn to develop strength?
Okay, so that means that you are getting your charge triggered. And whether it comes out in tears or anger or fear or rapid talking or defensive behavior or defensive language, that means we get triggered. And this happens in work situations, it happens in relationship. When we're triggered, we're running a charge. So the first step would be just to notice your charge. And now maybe when a boss is criticizing you, you can't do it in that moment. But you can start to get a handle on it by maybe even reviewing, if that happened yesterday or last week, reviewing what happened and the feelings, and see if you can get them to come up again. You probably can. And notice, where are you blocking that? Where are you holding? Where is it going into frustration? And in your privacy, you can start to work with freeing that up and discharging a little. What do you want to say that you can't say? What's your frustration? What does that remind you of? Was it a parent that criticized you in the same way or a similar way that triggers it? So there's a whole process that I'll talk about in the last module on working with charge in our relationship, of what to do when we get triggered, how to take some time out and really look inside at the source of that trigger and what is actually needed, and then find a way to give that to yourself. In the moment, the best thing is to ground that charge and just acknowledge to yourself, oh, I'm feeling really charged right now. I'm going to burst into tears. Ground that into your feet. We'll learn a grounding exercise. And just take a deep breath. And you might even say to the person in as neutral a way as possible, it's bringing up a lot of charge for me right now. Can you just give me a minute with that? And that way you're honoring yourself, you're honoring the process. And by that action, you are inviting the other person to honor you in that as well. But it's most difficult to do in the moment when we need it. So the more we learn to handle our charge, the less quickly we're triggered.
All right, beautiful. Thank you. Wow, looking at the clock, we are out of time here. This has been, as usual, just a wonderful hour. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your questions. Once again, Mastering Your Charge starts Tuesday, November 6th, and you can visit masteringyourcharge.com to learn more and to register. So, Anodea, do you have anything else you'd like to say before we cut you loose for the evening?
I love answering questions. I could do it all day. It always makes me think of new things. And there will be time in the course to ask questions. And there will also be a Facebook group where you can ask questions midweek. And I will go on, and I'm not traveling very much during this course. So that's a relief, and I'll be able to really monitor the Facebook group. And I look forward to taking you all on this journey. Keep asking those questions.
All right. Thank you again, Anodea. You sure gave some great answers. I mean, you just whacked them right back at us. So thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you all the people that wrote in their questions, that had the courage to ask them, and that tuned in on the call. And I hope to meet you in Mastering Your Charge. We'll master it together.
All right. Sounds awesome. Once again, thank you to everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great night, everyone.